All right, a formal welcome to Kabbalah Coffee. This is our first KNC after Passover. I hope everybody had a good Pesach. It's nice to be back, right? It's nice to hear. Yeah, it's nice to be back in a routine. Okay, so today's topic, if you saw my email that I sent out on Friday, I believe, today's topic is all about love. And the topic is about pure love. So I want to distinguish between pure love and true love. These are, you could say that they're arbitrary in English, just words that we're using to highlight some points, but nonetheless, I am using these words to highlight some points. So bear with me as I try to develop these ideas. So today's class is all about love and distinguishing between the notion of pure love and true love. So what is true love? Hey, Mariana, welcome. It's great to see you.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome. So we're talking about love and the difference between true love and pure love. So what is true love? True love, as we've explored many times in Kabbalah Coffee, is a love that is not selfish, but is rather selfless. So as opposed to love that's all about oneself and about getting something from, let's say, the relationship, it's like, so what do I get out of it? Pure love is about giving. Sorry, forget pure. True love, because I want to distinguish between the two. True love is about giving. It's not about taking. So in Kabbalah, the energy of love is an energy that flows from inside outside. The arrow, the directional arrow of that energy is pointed outward. It emanates from within to without, from person A toward person B. Any energy that's flowing inward is not deemed chesed. Chesed is love, but it's also about giving. It's about bestowing. It's about flowing outward. So true love is a love that's true to that concept, where it's about giving and it's about bestowing and it's about benefiting the other. It's about granting something, if you wish, to someone else, but it's not about taking. So the difference between true love and not true love is, as our sages write in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, they say there's two types of love. There's love that's contingent on something and love that's not contingent. So basically conditional love and unconditional love. So conditional love is I love because of something that I'm getting from that relationship. So therefore, as our sages say, literally the quote, I'll tell you verbatim, the phrase of the Mishnah in Avot, in Ethics, it says, Batla davar, batla ava. Once that condition, if that condition were to disappear, then the love would disappear. In other words, if the love is conditional, so let's say I love someone because, okay, let's use a silly example, right? Let's forget about like romantic love and it's about friendship, because it's another form of love. It's a valid form of love that can help us with this concept. Let's say I'm friends with somebody because they have an apartment in a really great part of town, right? And then I love hanging out in that part of town and then crashing at that person's apartment because it's super convenient. So I'm friends with that person. If my friendship never develops, never matures past that benefit for me, so the entire friendship then, if it doesn't mature, then the entire friendship in my scenario that I'm giving you is based on that person's location, that person's apartment, the person's condo, whatever it is. Batla davar, let's say they move. Batla ava, then there's no love, there's no friendship anymore, because I was only friends with you because of where you live. Now you don't live there anymore. Done. By the way, a less maybe bizarre example of this, more relatable example is the friends that you meet in school. The friends that you made while growing up in the town that you were in, or the friends that you made in elementary school or middle school or high school or in college or in graduate school, right? Those friends, did you remain in touch with them? Again, this is not like, yes, Sandrine gives us a reason. Even across the world. Good. Which tells me, Sandrine, perfect. Sandrine has a friend from 7th grade. You know what that tells me? That tells me that the love and the friendship was not just conditional because you happened to be growing up with each other in the same place. But once you separated, then the love disappeared. It means that you grew the love, or the love, yes, may have started that way. You met the person because of, random factors. But
not that we have teenager, we talk about how when we were teenagers.
So now you commiserate, as raising teenagers, you commiserate with each other. Right. Yes, 100%. So there's different layers, right? So there's different layers of need. So I'm giving a simple one, correct, but you're saying it still might be based on something else, 100%. But if we just want to isolate it with this factor, let's say the factor is, I would say it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a convention, it's not convenience, context. It's a very contextual relationship, right? I am friends with you because we went to the same school growing up. Boom, we're friends. The question is, when you're no longer going to the same school, no longer walking down the same halls, do you still pick up the phone? Do you still reach out? Now, if you do, again, I'm not preaching, this is not be friends with whoever you want and not be friends with, I don't have an agenda. There's no agenda here. I'm just trying to describe what true love is. True love is a love that's not contingent, not dependent on a factor. Because when it's contingent on a factor, the moment the factor is no longer relevant, the love is no longer there. So if the whole relationship, the whole friendship is based on the fact that we sat next to each other in desks, right? The desks were next to each other in school. The moment batla davar, the moment we're no longer sitting next to each other, then batla ab, then there's no more love. If we still are friends, it means it's not about the desks. It's about the relationship. That's what Avot reminds us. That's what Pirkei Avot, by the way, Ethics of the Fathers. If you've never studied Ethics of the Fathers, I'm going to say highly recommend. Highly recommend is a very weak term. I strongly, I don't know what else to say. You got to learn it. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Ethics of our Fathers. So if you've learned it before, I encourage you to continue to learn it again, to review it again. In fact, in Jewish tradition, we study Pirkei Avot this time of year. The 6 weeks between Pesach and Shavuot, we learn every week, a chapter a week on traditionally on Shabbat afternoon, but you can learn it anytime, a chapter a week in this 7 weeks between Pesach and Shavuot, but you do it the Shabbos after Pesach, so you have 6 Shabbatot, you have 6 Shabbats between the two for 6 chapters. It's a great thing to study this time of year to get ourselves kind of in an ethical, moral, refined space. Be that as it may, this Mishnah always sticks with me. The Mishnah gives 2 examples of what is love that's contingent and what's love that's non-contingent, i.e. unconditional love. So it says, what is an unconditional love? I'll go the other way around. What's unconditional love? Pure love. True love. True love is the love of David and Yehonatan, David and Jonathan. The Haftorah that we read yesterday in synagogues in the diaspora was maybe even in Israel also. Yeah, Machar Chodesh. It's about the friendship between David and Jonathan. Yehonatan was the son of Saul, who was the king, and David was going to be the one to take over that kingdom and basically jump over or overcome. Hey, good to see you, Alex. Welcome. Come on in. So basically, was going to leapfrog Yehonatan and take the throne, and yet they were best friends. So the Mishnah says this is a relationship that had every reason not to survive, not to exist. This relationship had every reason to blow up, right? Because these were individuals who were rivals to the throne, and yet they experienced incredible friendship that defied logic. Why? Because they were authentic friends. This is what we call true love. True love is not dependent on any factor. It's like, well, if you do this and if you do that, then I'll be, if we're not competing for the same job, then we'll be friends. No, true love is true love. True love is true love. True love is unconditional love. And it's about the other person. It's not about what I get out of it, because that's conditional love. Conditional love means if you're satisfying a need for me, or if I get what I want, then I'll love you. But that's conditional love. It's not unconditional. So unconditional love is what we call true love, and that is the pure. Again, I don't use that word pure. It's a true expression of chesed. Chesed is the energy of chesed is a flow of energy that starts from within person A and flows out toward person B. It's not the flow or the desire for B to give to you if you're A, right? It's not like, well, I want this, so therefore I love. That's not love. That's wanting. That's consuming, right? Love is pure energy emanating from person A to person B without conditions, without demands. It is a true love that emanates from one to the other and focuses on the other and does not think about self. That's true love. So I'll give you another example. So, and this relates to a mitzvah, a biblical mitzvah. The mitzvah is love your fellow as yourself, right? The Torah says, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha." Love reacha means could mean your friend, your fellow, your neighbor. Different translations. I'll use the word fellow. Love your fellow as yourself. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. So the Rebbe once spoke about this and said, it's interesting, right? Love your fellow as yourself. What happens? He gave a scenario. What happens if what happens if your friend is thirsty and you are hungry? So your friend has plenty of food but no water, and you have plenty of water but no food. Theoretical scenario. So yeah, your neighbor over there is thirsty and you are hungry. So what does it mean to love your fellow as yourself? What does that mean? A person might think, love your fellow as yourself means, if I'm hungry, right? So I will endeavor that just like I figure out a way to get myself food, I'll figure out a way how to get you food also. The problem is that person's not hungry, they're thirsty. So what does it really mean to love them as yourself? It means not actually to love them as yourself. Don't only give them what you need, give them what they need, just like you want what you need. In other words, don't look at the specific need, but the concept. Just like you want what you need, give them what they need, as opposed to giving them what you need. Does that make any sense? If I still remember the Rebbe's words on this. If you give them food, because to you, food is what's necessary, but meanwhile, they're thirsty, you haven't at all fulfilled what they need. You haven't at all given them anything. It's like another form, getting back to love and relationships. So there's that fairly famous book called The 5 Love Languages. That speak about how people need different things or want different things from relationships. Some people, they what they need is words of affection. Some people need acts of, I forget the words, acts of generosity or something. Some people need physical touch. Some people need, well, there's words of affirmation. There's acts of service. Man, it's been a while. Whatever, and physical touch, gifts. There you go. And there's one more that I can't remember. Be that as it may, it's not about exactly the specifics. But here's the point: if for you, what you need, let's say, are words of affirmation, you need to feel like affirmed, right? That's what you need. And so therefore, because that's how you identify love, right? You identify love as someone who tells you how good you are, because that's what you need. And therefore, when you're in a relationship, so you give that to the other, but they don't need that. They don't at all need that. They need acts of acts of service or something? Acts of service.
Acts of affection.
Acts of affection, whatever it is. So then you're missing the boat. You're giving them what you need, you're not giving them what they need. So the point is, after that debacle of an example that I just gave, no, I'm not kidding, not debacle, but yeah. So after that example, the point is like this: that if you're giving to someone what you need or what you want, then you're not really giving them anything. You're giving them. It's just an expression of self. It's more of self-expression versus selfless expression. It's more about you than it is about them, and that's not what we call true love. True love is really about the other.
Is there any concept similar to in spirituality where one can be doing that in their ego? So the spirituality word,
Yeah. To do what? True love?
Spirituality. So
Oh, yeah, of
I'm
course.
asking if
Yeah,
true love
absolutely.
can also have that.
Yeah, so Donna's asking a good question, which is, there is a concept where a person could be very spiritual, but be doing so from an ego place. Like the mystics write this phrase, 3 words, Yesh Misha Ohev. There is still an I who loves, and there's referring to loving God. So you love God, but there's still an I who loves, there's still an ego there. It's not perfect, and this is a extremely high standard, because high bar, because who's dissolving all traces of ego to dissolve in the oneness of God? That's a very high bar. Nonetheless, if we're just being honest here, one could say that when a person is in a state of divine love, it still might be because of how I feel about it. I feel excited about it. I feel good about it. So your question is, could you love selflessly also from a place of selfishness? That's your question. Probably. It's like, I know that the best form of love would be loving unconditionally and selflessly. So therefore, I want to check that box of I have an unconditional love relationship. So therefore, I'm going to practice this. Okay, so I guess it's not like the fullest form of that.
Don't interfere.
Hey.
I mean, I'm not interfering.
But this is
See what this was.
This is quite adorable. Who is this?
My Babala.
I see some resemblance.
My sweet little Babala.
She is adorable. This is our youngest Kabbalist right here.
What's her name?
My name?
Her name.
Edison.
Addison.
Addison.
Rochala.
Rachel. Good to see you, Rachel.
Love it.
Unbelievable.
Beautiful places.
This is Kabbalah Coffee. Oh, this space? It's a co-working space. Some offices and desks. Yeah. So is it possible to love unconditionally?
Yes.
But is it possible to love unconditionally for an ego-driven purpose? I would say yes. Because to vanquish all traces of ego is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. So even as we're trying to get to that truest place of love, are we really not going to feel anything? That's going to be that's really difficult to attain. So I would say, yeah, there might be some traces. Nonetheless, look, one thing is for sure, and this is a good opportunity to mention this disclaimer. It's never, I'm going to use a lot of double negatives. It's really never all or nothing. In other words, we shouldn't say that if we can't reach the purest form of love, then let's not try. We have to, the point is that it's a striving, it's a growth experience. Look, let's just speak in very frank terms here. Most relationships begin very contextually. Most relationships, whether it's the friendship with your friend in seventh grade, you said? 7th grade? 7 years old or 7th grade?
7th grade.
7th grade? Or whether it's, could be the same, right? Or it could be the person that you first fell in love with, right? Romantically. Either way, oftentimes it is very contextual. In other words, it's because you have mutual friends, or you were in the same place, you went to the same school, and you met each other. The real question is that relationship going to grow beyond the original context, or will it remain stuck in that original context? If it remains stuck in that context, it means that it hasn't really matured, and that just makes it more susceptible. Again, I'm not judging here or there. It's fine. No one has to, you don't have to have unconditional love with everybody you've ever met. I mean, that would be a lot of work to keep up those relationships.
It was the case, Robert. It's a funny story, but we always joke about it. I sat next to her in class because she had a nice sweatshirt that I liked.
Oh, you see that? Perfect. Sandrine is giving a perfect origin story of this deep relationship now that's gone on for many years now. So it started, Sandrine says so this friend that she met in 7th grade that she's still in touch with, even though they live across continents, in different continents across the Atlantic Ocean, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah,
France.
France.
Yeah. I just took the liberty of assuming that. So Sandrine says she originally sat down next to her in the desk next to her because she liked her sweater. So there you go. It began with a sweater and it deepened, but that's a perfect example. It begins with a sweater, which is relatively, I mean, sweaters are nice, but like it's relatively, on the level, on the depth chart of love and relationships, it's not the deepest thing. But that's how relationships.
Yes.
No. But I'm not judging. I'm saying that's how every relationship starts like that. You meet someone and they catch you for whatever reason, right? It's every relationship starts like that. The question is not how did it start. The question is how does it develop? What do you do next? Does it remain at that point? So let's say somebody, they fall in love with somebody because physically they're very attracted to them. Okay. Well, as I've said, I don't even know how many times I've said this. The one constant about life, if we don't know anything else about life, the one thing we know about life is that the physical is going to change. There is zero question about that. No one ever looked the same at 5, 15, 25, 35, 45, 55, 65. I'm going to go 75, 85, 95, 105, 115, 125. Never happened. Please God till 120, right? Never happened. It's not shayach. Shayach is Hebrew for possible. It's not possible. So if the relationship, so let's say you fall in love with someone, highly attracted, physically highly attracted to them. Great. Nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. But if you never develop the relationship deeper than that, then the question is, well, what happens when the looks change? Now what? Now what happens? What happens when the physical is not the same way it was before? Batla davar, batla ava. When that thing changes, well, what happens with the love? Dr. Maxey.
Thank you, Rabbi. So could it be in Sandrine's case that the friend's sweater is what initially attracted her? To your point, as the relationship develops, then as an example, you could find out that it was both your grandmother's favorite color, and that was the grandmother you were very closest to, et cetera, et cetera. And could that be that, on the one hand, yeah, it seems rather superficial and not very deep on the depth chart. On the other hand, if you use it as an opportunity for relationship development, then you get to those deeper levels and find where that connectivity is.
Yes, 100%. And whether it's about because the sweater triggers a memory of something that feels good for both parties they have in common, or whether that was just, let's say, a random, once a one-time deal, but that stirs a conversation. And now two people who wouldn't necessarily have talked to each other otherwise, now they begin hanging out, and now they begin to realize that they have so much in common, or that they grow together and they become deep friends. However that journey unfolds, once it moves past that to a deeper place, that's where the magic happens. And again, I'm not suggesting that every relationship has to do that, or that if it doesn't do that, then somehow it's not a good relationship. This is not a judgment. There's no judgment here. The point is simply, and we all have this in our lives, we have relationships that are relatively superficial or contingent on something. It's more of a transactional relationship. Like, this is what I get out of it, so therefore we have a relationship. But beyond that, it's not like particularly deep or significant. And then we have relationships that are much deeper. The example that the Mishnah gives, I did half. So the example of unconditional love is David and Jonathan. David and Jonathan had every reason. This is like the story of King David before he was king. Jonathan was the son. I mentioned this before, but I'm just going to reset this. Jonathan, aka Yehonatan, he was the son of the king, King Saul. And David was going to take the throne from that family. And he did. And yet they remained best of friends. They remained lifelong friends to the very end, despite the natural reasons that they had to be rivals and to be against each other. Why? The reason is simple. The reason is because their friendship was not based on who got the throne, who became king, who had power, who didn't have power, who ruled who. It wasn't about that. It was about a deep friendship. So what started as perhaps a conventional relationship where, contextual relationship, we have similar interests, grew to a deep relationship where even though they had every reason to fight with each other and turn against each other, they didn't. They remained best of friends, dedicated and loyal to each other, despite all of the chaos that was swirling around them. The other example is Amnon and Tamar. Amnon and Tamar are the other example that's brought in the Mishnah. Amnon and Tamar were half siblings. They were both the descendants of King David. And so a half brother and a half sister. And the story in the books of the prophets goes that Amnon lusted after his half sister, which of course is a forbidden incestuous relationship. We actually just read about it in yesterday's Torah portion, in Acharei. It's a forbidden relationship. A half sibling is not kosher. So what happens is, but he still has this lust for her. And the story goes that he basically found a way to set it up where he and her were alone in a space, in a house or whatever it was. And then he physically forced himself upon her and raped her, assaulted her, raped her. Horrific story. And what happens, the scripture tells us that after that episode, he despised her, he hated her more than originally he lusted after her. In other words, he despised her more than he lusted after. The psychology of, I don't know if it's an abuser or of a criminal, I don't know what you would call this person, the psyche, I don't know the exact terminology here, but the psyche is that he desired her, again, in a very unhealthy way. And then once he had her, so to speak, which I don't even like that term, it's a horrible term, then it turned in such an ugly way. I mean, it manifested in an ugly way, but then it turned the other way. Ultimately, by the way, he faced exceptionally harsh consequences for that. And he lost his life because of that episode. But getting back to the story, this is an example that the Mishnah gives of a love. I don't even know if the word is love, a lust, a desire, something on his side, nothing to do with her, on his side, that was so contingent, it was so based on one thing, that once that thing was satisfied, so to speak, then that was it. And the Rebbe explains that the Mishnah is giving an example of a relationship that should have been unconditional. They were half siblings, they were family. It should have been unconditional, and yet he, because of how twisted it was, he basically distorted it to the point that he took something unconditional and made it conditional, made it so, it's not like conditional, it's so ugly and horrific. He took something so true and beautiful and devolved it to such an ugly place, as opposed to a situation where you could take something relatively trivial and contextual and grow it into something deep and meaningful. So you can move it both directions. You could take something, oh, hey, I was sitting next to the person in school and now we're best of friends. Or we could take something, we're family, and totally mess that up. It really can work both ways, yeah.
Rabbi, could you extend this to part of the explanation for why arranged marriages superficially so exist? What I'm thinking in that context, there's many reasons, but what I'm thinking in your context is that perhaps one of the reasons is that there is a lesson to be learned, that it is not about the triviality or the rationality, as long as one is superficially, aligned with family interests.
Right.
That it's not about the rationality of the mind. I'm attracted to this person because A, B, and C, but the opposite of rationality is ultimately essentiality.
Very, very interesting point that you're making. And I think there's some truth to that. So just to make sure that everybody heard this. So Alex is asking, is this a concept, or is this the rationale behind the concept of arranged marriages? Now, the phrase arranged marriages we have to better, well, before I get into the analysis of that. So he said, because look, what you're doing is you're taking out some of the superficiality and you're saying, look, as long as you can reasonably, as long as you're reasonably attracted to the other person, then make it work. As you could, if you're working to make it work, right, then why get caught up in all of the trivialities that anyway relegate the relationship to something superficial? Let's jump in. If we're committed to getting somewhere deeper, let's get somewhere deeper. And there is a lot of truth to that. But let me just clarify. So when we talk about arranged marriages, that could mean a lot of different things along a lot of different cultures. Anywhere from forced marriages to a situation where two people are meeting each other for the first time via an introduction through like a mutual friend. So, and those, I would consider all of those, and anywhere in between, I would consider all that to be under the guise of, or under the category of arranged marriages, because I'm thinking of assisted marriage. So So really arranged is a little bit of a vague term. So in Judaism, there's no such thing as forced marriage, not from the guy's side, not from the girl's side. You cannot force a marriage. That is against Jewish law. In fact, we learn this from the biblical story of Isaac and Rebekah, where Eliezer, if you recall, Eliezer, Abraham's servant, goes to find a wife. He's the first matchmaker, the first shadchan that we find in history, and at least in the Torah. He goes to find a wife, to find a young girl suitable for Isaac, for Yitzchak. And he finds this girl, her name is Rebecca, and she's so kind and she's so generous, and he meets the family. And ultimately they say, when they're deciding whether or not it should go ahead, they say, let's ask her. We have to ask her, does she consent, yes or no? And this teaches us that there cannot be marriage without consent. There is no such in Judaism. I can't speak to other communities or whatever. But in Judaism, there's no such thing as a forced marriage. Now, a lot with that being said, there are still various degrees of shadchan, of matchmaker roles within Judaism. So back in the day, you might have a more heavy-handed role of the shadchan, where the shadchan again is matchmaker. The shadchan or the families would say, essentially, these two are earmarked for each other. I mean, unless they absolutely refuse, but this is the intention. And then there might be pressure to go along with it, even though you can't force it, but there might be some sort of family or social pressure to go along with it, which could backfire or it could be fine. In the Chabad system, that's not how it works. I could speak to my own experiences. So typically the role of a shadchan is simply to suggest names, not just names, people, right? For either party to date. So how do you meet, how do you meet someone? What's an effective way of meeting someone that may or may not be compatible? It's good to have someone that knows a lot of people. So shadchanim, matchmakers, would why would they be called matchmakers? Why are they called matchmakers? Again, in Chabad circles, because they happen to know and meet with a lot of young men and young women, and happen to get a sense of the energy of various people and say, you know what? I think you would be good for this. I met my wife, not through a formal shadchan, not through a formal matchmaker. We actually happened to be working in the same building upstairs. I've told this story before. We were working in 770 upstairs in the offices over there. And a friend of mine who was recently married to a friend of Leah's. So she's like, hey, would you consider going? And they kind of, he spoke to me, she spoke to her. The next thing you know, there we are. So we had met, but we had not schmoozed. In other words, they met and they were introduced by, interesting. Right. No. So the thing is like this. The thing is that it was, again, I don't want to make this about me. I'm just, but it came up, or maybe I brought it up. I don't remember how. I think I brought it up. So I did make it about me, but I'll quickly move off it. The point is that yes, we had seen each other, but it wasn't like it wasn't going to spontaneously turn into dating. It was, well, and not typical. It was typical in a Chabad environment where you're everything's kosher. I mean, everything. So the point is that the matchmaker is kind of like the go-between. It also there's a few roles that the shadchan plays. Again, in other circles and even other Hasidic groups, it might be a little bit more, for lack of a better term, heavy-handed. But in Chabad circles, it's very it could be as helpful or as say different flavors. So somebody, right? It's a continuum. But I do agree with you that one more thing, in Chabad circles, typically the dating period is very short. Not only Chabad circles, in many Jewish Orthodox circles, it's very short. I'm talking about, we dated maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks before we got engaged. And like in the world, there's 3-4 weeks and then you get engaged. How do you even know the person? The shadchan also, right? And both families look into the other family. You do some research before the date, before the first date in this system. And you basically check. I mean, you'd never know, right? But you look into it and see, like, okay, is there compatibility? Are they coming from a similar place, similar background, similar interests, similar values? And then each day could go anywhere from 2, 3, 4, up to 8, 9 hours. And you're talking, and the focus is on marriage. The focus is not on hanging out, having fun. It's a very focused thing. And you know, also, getting back to what Alex said, because what Alex said is true. And that is that knowing that the superficial is superficial and is not going to make a long-term relationship, that's built on the work that's done, right? It's not the work that's done before the marriage, it's the work that's done after. I mean, it doesn't have to be after, whatever, but it's a lifelong work, knowing that. So then, okay, so that, I mean, how long do you need to figure that out? You know, I mean, again, you could argue that you do need more time, and that's fine. But I would venture to say that most of what you learn about the person, you can figure out in the first few weeks, if you're really focused on that. Do you really need? I mean, how long do you really need? What else are you gonna learn? I mean, like, I guess you could learn more. You could always learn more, but then in the Dover Safe, then there's no way. But yeah.
So with the Kabbalah community, people are doing that, going from 3 weeks to it's like when the person decides, I want to get married now, then you're really serious and you're not.
Yeah. Typically, again, everyone could do whatever they want. There's no rule, but typically in the community, it's not casual dating, or it's not multiple dating at the same time, multiple people at the same time.
Well, yeah, I know what I mean.
It's committed. You know, when you're ready to get married,
Yeah.
then you're dating for marriage, finding your bashert.
So you're holding
I remember feeling like I don't know everything about this person, but I feel good enough and confident enough to want to get to want to live my life with this person. That's I think, you know, what is love? We've been exposed to a very Hollywood, I don't know if we call it Hollywood, I'll just call it a Hollywood version of love, which is all about like a romantic fairy tale. The problem with that is that it's a romantic fairy tale. In other words, that's not real. Yes, that's part of the experience, but that's not a 50, 60 year thing. It's not possible.
It's also helpful.
It doesn't last 50, 60 years.
The Kabbalah situation, that the expectations are the same at the beginning from each side. You know, each side comes in with the known.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, so what Donna's saying, just so for benefit of everybody online, is that the expectations are the same, right? Now, could be expectations are different. So in Chabad, at least when I've been married for almost, hold on, my son's gonna turn 18. So yeah, about 19 years. So I don't know I can't vouch for sure how things are now, because it's 20 years later. But 20 years ago, the big question was shlichus or business. That was the question, mainly for the guy, and for both sides. Like, do you want to be a rabbi and rebbe in a community, or do you want to do anything else? A lawyer, a doctor, a businessman, a teacher, like whatever it is. Like, what's your general career path? Because those are two different things. And right, and within the Chabad community, those are like the two buckets, if you will. So if the guy wants to be a rabbi in a community and she wants to just live a comfortable life, when I say comfortable, and not live the Rebbitzin life, right? A public life, thank you, public life, then that's probably that date is probably not going to, can't say it's not going to happen, but it's less likely that they would go out because they know that they're not necessarily looking for the same thing even before they meet each other for the first time. This is where the parents help vet, and even not without the input of the individual. The individual has to know themselves, and the parents have to know who they are, not think. This is a challenge also that happens in the system. Every system has challenges. Challenge sometimes is the parents think they know what the kid wants, and they're choosing what they want their kid to want, but it's not necessarily what their kid wants. When I say choosing, again, no one's choosing a spouse. The most you're choosing is the person that they're going to meet on a date. That's the extent of it. No one's forcing a marriage at all. But anyway, that's a little bit about the system. But you are starting within that community, within the Chabad community. That's my experience. You are starting within a familiar framework, a pre-selected framework. But again, it's no different than we once had a talk at the old building, and this was Rabbi Schusterman's stepmom, and she spoke about this by giving the following analogy, which I love to this day. I will never forget this analogy. She says, imagine you're going to a new city. Imagine you move to a new city and you suddenly develop a toothache and you need a dentist. You don't have a dentist. You have a dentist back home in your old city, but not in your new city. You don't know a dentist. So she says, how are you going to find a dentist? Are you scenario A, are you going to go to a bar and sit at the bar and start and look for somebody that's attractive and then have a few dates? Huh? With a nice smile, perfect. Right? And then schmooze them up and then start dating. And then 6 months, a year, 5 years in, you'll pop the question, by the way, are you a dentist? Or will you ask for a recommendation for a dentist? Why is love and marriage left to any less of specificity? Why for love and marriage do we roll the dice and say, well, let me go to a bar or whatever, it doesn't have to be a bar. Let me go somewhere and let me find somebody that looks attractive. And then maybe they have the same interests that align with me. That seems like a very capricious, is that the right term? A very random type of way to do it. Again, I'm not trying to critique society, just saying that that's the rationale behind a system of shidduchim, where you find someone who is at least more or less a dentist or on the same page on some level. Makes sense? To me, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes it easier also. If you're seeing a dentist, how many office visits do you have to know if you want to stay with this dentist? You with me on this? If you don't know if they're a dentist and you're afraid to ask the question because you're afraid that they're going to say no, but you really like them anyway, but you really are hoping they're a dentist. I hope the analog is clear on this, right? Whatever. I've had many people who dated for years before they had a conversation and found out, you know what? We don't at all have the same vision for the future. And that was like 2 or 3 years into a relationship, if not more. And yes, there's fun and growth along the way, sure. But if you're looking for a dentist, I don't know, look for a dentist. I mean, find a dentist. But once you find a dentist, how many office visits do you need before you know if they're the right dentist for you? I mean, could something change? Anything could change. But like, you don't need to go to a dentist for, 2 years. Whatever. All right.
Rabbi, so in the shluchim community, what are the reasons and how does it transpire a divorce?
How does divorce transpire? Divorce transpires like any situation could transpire. Any number of reasons. Just because there is because a relationship starts off in a certain way, in a certain context, or because a group has, ascribes to a certain set of beliefs or tries to ascribe to a certain set of beliefs, does not make anyone immune to any of the realities of life. So personalities and relationships are always a complicated and evolving dynamic. And so any reason, when I say reason, any scenario that could lead to divorce in any community could also lead to divorce in a Chabad community. So there's no immunity to the human condition. That's an important thing to remember.
There's no kind of state.
Divorce. I don't think hopefully there's no stigma. That would be, but again, it's up to, if people choose to look at that would be another, human frailty, human flaw, to look to stigmatize someone else because of a relationship that ended. That would say more about the person doing the judging than necessarily about the person in the relationship or who was in the relationship. But again, just because a group of people studies certain texts or strives for certain values doesn't mean that any individual is immune to the human condition. As I spoke yesterday at Shul, the moment we put a halo on ourselves is the moment we're really in trouble. The moment, anytime a person thinks, well, I'm impervious to that sort of thing. That's that. Then you have to worry. Now you have to really worry when somebody believes that they're, beyond human frailty. Okay, so all of this was a discussion about true love. So in short, true love is all about unconditional love, giving love. It's about the other. It's not about self. What is pure love? Because today's class is really, all this was the setup. What's pure love? Pure love is different than true love. Now, again, I said this all at the beginning of the class. You might say these semantics, it's just words, and that could be true. But forget, it doesn't have to be about the words, but about the concept. So what I'm calling pure love, what is pure love? Pure love is radically different than true love. In fact, one could argue that pure love is the opposite of true love. What is pure love? Pure love is a love, a chesed, that emanates from the person that is so pure that the other person almost can't relate to it. In other words, it's so pure, your love, that the other person has difficulty relating to it because it's so much you. So what I said before about love languages, right? So it's about true love is not loving them like you want to be loved, but pure love would almost be that. Pure love would be your okay, let me speak about myself. It would be imposing almost my definition of love or my form of love on the other person. Pure love is a pure expression of my love that I'm directing toward the other. And in most cases of pure love, many cases, maybe most cases, maybe all cases, the other one will not have a way, necessarily a healthy way of receiving it or of assimilating it, of incorporating it, because it's so pure to the giver that it's pure to the giver. The pureness of the giver, the less pure probably it will be to the receiver because it's on that side. So here's an example. So let's say your child is turning 5. Okay? No, let's go younger. Let's say your child is turning 3. And what they love is a lollipop. Remember when you were 3? Oh, not everyone loves lollipops, but whatever. Let's just say, yeah, remember when you were 3, you loved lollipops? Good. So all you want for your birthday is one of those big lollipops, you know, the ones with like the colors, the swirl, like that whole multicolored rainbow thing. Got that for one of our kids for his upshernish. I think it was Shalom, our mitzvah boy. We got him a big lollipop for his upshernish. By the way, haircut, upshernish is the first haircut at 3. Haircut and lollipops, not, just saying, not a great combo. So he had to like duck and bob, you know, while trying to eat that lollipop. Anyway, the point is like this. Imagine if you give that kid, 3-year-old, you approach the 3-year-old boy, let's say at the upshernish, at that first haircut, and you want to give that kid a gift, and you give that child, try to think of a sophisticated gift that the child won't relate to, $100 bill. $100. What do I do with this? Right? Can I eat it? Can I taste good? No, it's $100. What do I do with that? Or imagine you give, Israeli bonds. I don't know. Just trying to think of something like bar mitzvah kids, right? Get Israeli bonds. Do they know what it is? I mean, you explain it to them, but like, so it's a question of this. Pure love is the love that is purely yours to give. You're giving love as defined by you. This is what's dear to me. I'm giving it to you. I'm giving you something precious to me. $100, a check for $1,000. Here's a check for $1,000. It's so precious, so dear to me. I'm giving it to you, 3-year-old, because one day you'll appreciate it. But right now, imagine what's the most sophisticated food. Let's think of sophisticated foods. I don't want to get into wine. Oh, speaking of wine and cheese this Tuesday night. Join us for this event. If you're not yet signed up, join us Tuesday night, 7:30, wine and cheese experience. It's going to be amazing. Okay. Huh? You like that segue? You see how that works? Hey, everyone say hi to Jonathan. Jonathan is our dude. He runs everything behind the scenes. Jonathan is the man. Okay. So here's the deal. Imagine what's a sophisticated food, like caviar. What's worse? I don't know. Caviar. I feel like caviar was 20 years ago. Sushi. What do you think? Caviar. Truffles. What are truffles? Like a mushroom thing. Fungi. Let's say you give a 3-year-old. I like that because I've never used that example before. I've used sushi and wine and other stuff before, and caviar. Truffles. Truffles expensive? Truffles are expensive.
They're exclusive.
Okay, good.
You can't get them. You know,
Perfect.
You need,
Perfect.
right.
So let's say you got a,
Physically, you can't get.
do you get a box of truffles? How does that work? No, you don't get a box of
No,
truffles.
it's-
That's chocolate.
It's a physical thing to find them, that's very.
It's a whole experience.
Yeah.
They have dogs that find the
Yeah.
truffles. I heard, right, okay. And now I'm just recalling tidbits that I've heard over the years. All right, so let's say you bring this kid at his upstarnish, at his first haircut, 3 years old, 3-year-old boy. You bring him a truffle, say, where did truffles grow? Do we know? France, Cendrine, truffles. I don't know. All right, so let's say I went to France. I flew to France. You tell the kid, I flew to France to get you these exclusive truffles. These are priceless. These are priceless. These are thousands of dollars of truffles. And I'm giving you the truffle. Kid takes one look at it. I can't, to be honest, I can't picture it. But I'm just imagine whatever I'm imagining in my brain right now. Kid takes one look at it, smells it, maybe tastes it, and says, "Feh, what do you hate me? You don't like me? You're not my friend? But why you give me something terrible?"
Ruby grass.
Yeah, what is it? Who does that? You're giving me something bad? Who does that? What's going on? So what's important to recognize here is that the person giving, right, is giving something very valuable, eminently valuable, right? Something that's very precious and something that's very coveted and very, people would love this, but this child can't relate to it. So pure love is, here's how I'm going to frame it. Pure love is so pure that typically the recipient doesn't have the tools to deal with it. It's so pure, in fact, that it could seem like it's not love at all. Are you with me on this? It's so pure that it seems like it's not love, like it's the opposite. Chapter 26 of Tanya. He talks about struggles, challenges, life's challenges. And he talks about reframing challenge. And he says one way to reframe it, and this is one of the most difficult chapters, not to understand, but to really understand, to live with. Chapter 26 of Tanya is one of the most difficult chapters, in my opinion, one of the most difficult chapters of Tanya to actually live with and live by and assimilate into our lives. Because in chapter 26 of Tanya, he says that when a person is going through physical hardship, when I say physical hardship, I mean like practical life challenges, that one way to get through it is to meditate on the fact that this is actually God's greatest kindness. Listen to this. You're like, what? I literally disclaimed, I literally told you this is the hardest chapter, in my opinion. He says that that what feels painful, the challenge, the physical challenge, is coming from the highest level of divine kindness and love that's so high that it manifests as something painful. So how does that make any sense? Because the deeper the chesed is, the deeper the kindness is, the more pure it is above, the less relatable it is below. And when that descends below and that pure chesed comes below, pure kindness, pure love comes below, it manifests, or it's received as the opposite of kindness. One second. Hold on. This is what he says. There's two realities. There's Alma de Iskasia and Alma de Iskalia. There's the hidden realm and the revealed realm. The hidden realm is a realm that we can't relate to, spiritual realms. The revealed realm is what we can relate to, what we see, touch, and feel. He says when chesed, when you have pure kindness that comes from above, unfiltered kindness, it's like the truffle, where when you get the truffle, you think that it's child abuse. It's like, truffles, you're feeding this to me, right? You hate me. Why are you punishing me? Why are you hurting me? That's what the child's mind is saying. Why are you hurting me? He says, similarly, when we feel like we're getting right, klept, right? We're getting hit, so to speak, right? It's not comfortable. Life is not comfortable. He says that one way of reframing it. Again, it's one of the most difficult chapters to actually live by. One way of reframing it is to meditate on the fact that this is actually coming from the deepest level of divine kindness, which is so pure that it manifests in a way that we can't relate to it, and therefore it feels painful. That's what he says. And we ask Hashem that we ask God Almighty that instead of giving us pure kindness that we can't relate to, that we either, one of two things, either he filter it in a way that we can feel it as kindness, and add some sugar to it. Remember that song? Just a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, right? So number one, add some sugar to it, filter it so that we can tolerate it, number one. Number two, bring Mashiach, because when Mashiach comes, we'll be able to see the hidden realms. We'll be able to appreciate the growth or the blessing or the kindness that was embedded in the negative stuff, or in the stuff that we translate as negative. Chapter 26 of Tanya, he encourages us, if we can, and I'm not saying that we can, I'm just saying if we can, to have another look at the challenges of life and to see them as divine kindnesses that were unfiltered, that are not translated down into our definition of goodness, and are pure divine experiences that therefore feel beyond us, not just beyond us, transcendent, but even the opposite of kind, the opposite of good. And the question might be, well, if God really loves us, why doesn't he give us stuff that we do get? And I understand that. That's a valid question. That's what we ask God to do. But nonetheless, this is a way of framing it. Back to our point, pure love is a love that is so pure to the one who is doing the loving that oftentimes the recipient of the love cannot, in a healthy way, understand it, relate to it, or accept it because it's too pure. It's like the example that I've given many times. If like Albert Einstein is teaching a bunch of fifth graders, probably they're not going to understand the lesson, right? If he's teaching on his level, if he's pure Einstein, whatever, pure Einstein brain being transmitted to the fifth graders, they're not going to get anything. They're not going to understand it. In fact, they'll probably feel like this is torture and a waste of their time, right? Rather be in recess. What are you doing? Wasting our time and giving us stuff that's like totally out there.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
I mean, this discussion of pure love to me seems the exact opposite of the selfless love. It seems like selfish love because it's what's dear to Hashem or to the individual person
Right.
is what's given out.
Right. Right. That's what I said. I said that pure love is different and perhaps even the opposite of true love. I said that as I was introducing pure love. Exactly. No, I don't disagree with you. True love is about not thinking about yourself. It's not about you, it's about them. Pure love is it's you being put out there. So it's unfiltered, it's uncut, it's untempered, there's no gvura in that experience. It's pure chesed. Gvura, right? That gvura restraint. It's not chesed to the recipient, but it's not about the recipient.
Right.
It's about the pure, right? Correct. In other words, once you hear the definition of true love, then you turn back and say, pure love, how's that even love? I understand exactly what you're saying. That all that tells me is that I did a decent job of setting this up. But the point is that it still could be called chesed in the sense that it's a pure expression of you. It's pure you. You're putting your energy out there as you are. You're not taking into consideration the other, what they need, how they're going to accept it, how they're going to feel about it. It's not about them. And you say, well, how's that chesed? I get that. From a perspective of true love, that's not at all. It's the opposite. But from a perspective of pure love, it's pure chesed. True love means the first love that we talked about today. True love is when you have chesed with gevura. Gevura is that restraint and withholding because you're giving what they need, which means that you're filtering, you're cutting down, your definition of chesed to fit theirs. That's gevura. You're withholding, you're restraining, you're giving, and for a good cause. Pure chesed is not true. Pure love is not true love. It's pure. It's not true. Different words. Again, in English semantics, yeah.
When I went to New Jersey for Pesach to be with my grandchildren, Noah is 3.5. He's at
Nice.
that age. A little contrary.
Right.
A year ago, I was making matzo balls, and they experienced got them this thing where you can stand on and you're safe and you can watch the cooking. And so I was making G-dly, and he was helping roll them. And I was very excited about doing it again with him this year because I don't see them that much. he didn't want to do it.
Wasn't
I mean,
interested,
The
right.
rest of me wanted that experience with him, that was pure love.
Right.
He wasn't into it. Now, did he eat them? Yes. Did he love them? Yes. But, it was.
Can I repeat that story?
Sure.
So Nina said, so she visited her 3-year-old grandson just now for Pesach, and all she wanted to do was roll matzo balls. Not all she wanted to do, but what part of the experience was to cook together. Last year when he was 2.5, he was interested. This year he wasn't so interested. So that now you have a dilemma. You didn't say this, I'm putting words in your experience. Now you have a dilemma. Dilemma is, do I force what I want the experience to look like on him, or do I let go and say, you know what, let's do what he wants to do. And so that the true love is the latter, not the former. But pure love would be, this is who I am, this is how I am, and this is what's radiating from me. So I just want to clarify. Pure love is not the way we're defining it now. It's not devious. It's not malicious. It's not what's the word I'm looking for? Manipulative. It's pure. It's like precocious almost. It's like pure energy that's emanating. It's innocent almost, but it's not taking into consideration the other one. But it's pure. And oftentimes when that's the case, I mean, if everyone's compatible 100%, then it's great, right? If you're like, oh my gosh, let's make matzo balls, and they're like, I want to make matzo balls with you, then there's no conflict, then it's perfectly seamless. But what happens sometimes, maybe even oftentimes, is when it's your pure expression, and they're not on the same. If and when they're not on the same page, well, then you have an experience where even if they went along with it, right? Then they might be like, inside a little bit, not so happy with the experience, even if they don't say anything, but it's not going to necessarily feel like the greatest experience. And it might feel, even in a worst case scenario, it might feel like torture to have to do this. Well, so one party is feeling like this is the greatest experience ever. The other party is feeling like it's torture. And again, bring this back to chapter 26 of Tanya. He says, if you understand, if that is a reasonable analogy, then maybe we can have a similar meditation when we're going through life's challenges. I understand that we can ask, but if God can do anything, why can't God make it good, even, revealed? I get it. We're not going to answer that question, right? That's the question that we're waiting for the answer for, with clear blessings and Mashiach. That's the only answer for that, is a solution. But the meditation is when I'm going through challenge, what he suggests. Again, it's very difficult. But if we can understand how on one side they think it's amazing and this side thinks that it's torture, okay, so then maybe this is a truth in life in a larger sense as well, that when we're going through challenges, on the divine side, it's actually a blessing. It's just one that we have no tools right now to relate to yet.
But if we do have that meditation, then it seems we're saying to ourselves, it's not going to change, and I can hope, and the one hope is Mashiach.
No, what the good question. The outcome of that would be, I recognize that everything that happens, that everything that comes from God, here's how the formula works. If I believe that God is good and God is all powerful, then I believe that everything that comes from God is good. So how come this is happening to me and it's not good? So either God is not good, or cue up this meditation that coming from God, it is good. But truffles to a 3-year-old, that is incompatible. The 3-year-old say it's not good. Matzo balls, for whatever reason, at this stage and age, at that moment in time, because the next day it might have been fine. But like that, at that moment, was not the most enjoyable experience. So what's my request? I do 2 things. Number one, I accept it on the one hand as coming from God, and therefore ultimately on God's end being an expression of goodness. And I ask God that, without a manipulative request, not like, if you really love me, then but God also help me translate that pure kindness into a kindness that I can relate to, so that I can feel good about your kindness as well. And that's the request. Give me revealed kindness, revealed blessings. Sometimes I'll write, in language. The Rabbi would write also, I got it from the Rabbi, like We don't ask only for blessings, but reveal blessings. Because blessings, everything's a blessing on some level. We don't want just want blessings. We want revealed blessings, i.e. blessings that we understand as blessings, even though according to Tanya, that would mean that it's going through a filter, which means that necessarily it's a lower level. If the 3-year-old is going to appreciate it, it's probably not so healthy, right? Your mileage may vary, not all 3-year-olds, but it's probably it may not be as, I don't know if truffles are healthy, but theoretically, right? It's not, it may not be as, certainly not going to be as sophisticated. So we're essentially asking God, we will forego the higher level to get the lower level that we can then appreciate. And that's a valid request. Mashiach is when we'll appreciate even the higher level. That's when you have the marriage, that's the maturity, if you will, where the child becomes an adult and says, you know what? I actually do like truffles. I see all along the truffles. Again, this is not, I've said this probably 6 or 7 times. I'll say it one last time. This is not an easy chapter. It's not an easy concept. It's something that I struggle with, and how to actually, integrate and because you're going through that moment, the last thing that most of us are thinking this is some divine kindness you got here, right? And that's not the first reaction. Nonetheless, that's what he says. So what's the point here? True love is a love that is about the other. Pure love is a love that's about the expression of the one who's doing the love. And are they different? Yes. Are they opposites? They can be opposites, right? Are we making a judgment which one is better? Well, from the perspective of the recipient, true love is better. From the perspective of a pure expression of the love itself, pure love is more pure. I don't know if it's better or not. It's more pure. The reason why we're doing all of this is to get back into our text, and we have now a good span of about 10, 11 minutes. And we're going to get inside our text. And our text is going to tell us that this is exactly what happens on Rosh Hashanah and the rest of the year. And when I say Rosh Hashanah, I mean the whole high holiday season. Rosh Hashanah, 10 days of Tshuva, Yom Kippur, that time, I'll just call it Rosh Hashanah. That time of year versus what happens every day. On Rosh Hashanah, God gives pure love. But we can't do anything with that. The rest of the year, every day, we ask in our prayers that God give us true love. Translate it down to something that I can actually enjoy. Don't leave it theoretically. Don't leave it as something painful that if I was only mature enough, I would appreciate. Give me something that I can immediately relate to. Give me the candy, essentially, is what we're asking of God. Perfect. Pass this down. And Sandrina, looks like you have that. All right. We are on page. I'm going to pull this up online also. We are on page 280. This is just an absolutely magnificent piece of the text. And I hope you enjoy it. Okay. I'm going to pull this up on the screen. Yeah, like the story of Job, I see Tony wrote, right? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Daily judgment. Thus, and it's okay, it's been a few weeks, but we can jump right in because I think this intro should have worked over here. Thus, man is judged. Man, of course, not gender specific. Human beings are judged every day. From the earlier discussion will be understood that the beneficence, in other words, the blessings allotted on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are elicited into Malchut of Atzilut. And elicited into Malchut of Atzilut can assume a variety of forms of beneficence when it reaches Asiyah. So the pure chesed, beneficence is chesed, literally in the Hebrew, chesed. Second of that last paragraph, second Hebrew word there is chesed. We're talking about chesed, pure love, right? So the pure beneficence, the pure love and giving that is allotted to us, human beings on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that all of that is on a level of pure chesed. And it can take a variety of forms until it translates into our Asiyah. Asiyah means our physical universe. Chesed in Atzilut, second to last line. Chesed in Atzilut, chesed of the highest realm, is still without any configuration of the manner of the flow of chesed of Asiyah. It's pure love. It's not true love. It's pure love from the perspective of the lover, of the giver. Let's continue. It is absolute. It is abstract chesed at this stage. 282. It is abstract chesed, pure abstract chesed, which is subject to being fashioned through its investment in the worlds of Biyah as noted. In other words, it can take on a form, but at this stage, it's pure love. It's pure, unformed, unmitigated, unchanneled, unfiltered love. Through this investment, it becomes, in other words, through the investment, through the worlds and getting filtered, it then becomes physical chesed in this physical world in any number of ways. But as it starts off as pure chesed, pure love. And then it filters into some love that can be tapped into and can be utilized or received. In a similar way, another example that I didn't give before that I just thought of now is when you give that child a hug. You want to give that hug? Oh, you want to give that hug really strong, but as a little child, can't crush the, God forbid, right? So you have to limit, even as you're hugging, you have to limit the hug. So, but I really want to hug you. Okay, but I have to hold myself, I have to be very gentle. It's like, is it pure or is it filtered? That's the same thing. So chesed, so here's the deal. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there is a pure emanation of divine kindness, pure chesed. At that stage, though, it's unfiltered, it's uncut, it's unchanneled. It could be any number of things or no number of things at that point, because it's pure chesed, it's divine chesed. Let's continue. This is the subject. Now we get to what happens every day. This is the subject of the daily judgment of beneficence destined for man. In other words, that's what happens every day. So on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we have the pure chesed. What happens every day? There's another judgment. That is, what is the actual manifestation going to look like? And he says that right here in the next line. What shall be the purpose of the beneficence and its flow into Asiyah? That's the question that's answered every single day. What does that look like on the ground? What does it actually look like? Shall man be granted a rich measure of chesed in all three, children, health, and sustenance, or possibly a generous measure of two of them, or maybe even only one of them? There's three general categories, right? Children, i.e. family, health, and sustenance, money. So those are the three categories of blessings. So is person A, right? Are they going to receive today, right? Today, are they going to receive God's pure, unfiltered chesed in all three channels, or maybe only two, or maybe only one of them? By the way, he'll talk about maybe even none. This judgment is determined on a daily basis by the heavenly court in the chamber of merit. The chamber of merit, Heichal Hazchus, chamber of merit, meaning in the chambers of Berea. That's the second of the spiritual worlds. Atzilut, Bria, Yitzir, Asiyah, it's the second of the spiritual worlds. If the verdict on a daily basis is that the beneficence allotted to man in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur cannot possibly be called forth in all three areas of this man, but only two, for example, then the judgment continues. In other words, if question number one is, there are three possibilities. How many will it go? Let's say it's two. Great. Then the question continues. In what area shall the chesed be granted? Shall be for children and health, that he have sturdy children and a healthy household. Shall be for prosperity and health, that he enjoy wealth and vigor. So which two? So first question is how many of the three? And then the question is, so if it's two, which two? If it's one, which one? And now we get to a story. I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but now we get to a mind-blowing story of the Baal Shem Tov. Here he says, the prayer of a tzaddik can be effective. Right? Sometimes we wonder, what does a tzaddik do? What can a rebbe? What can a tzaddik or rebbe do? Here's the story of the Baal Shem Tov. Here, the prayer of a tzaddik can be effective, changing the decree, the daily decree, from one particular to another. In other words, from one channel to the other. This will help us understand the story that a tzaddik cannot create a flow, but a tzaddik can switch the tracks. Right? A tzaddik is like a conductor, maybe not a conductor. Whoever is the one that switches the tracks of a train, tzaddik can switch the tracks. So this helps us understand the story with the Baal Shem Tov. Someone repeatedly implored him to pray on his behalf that he be blessed with offspring. So here was a person who was married, didn't have any children, and he prayed, he begged the Baal Shem Tov to give him a blessing for children. This man was quite wealthy. The Baal Shem Tov made no reply to the man's pleas. He basically ignored him. The man and his wife exerted themselves greatly, begging the Baal Shem Tov to pray for them. The Baal Shem Tov sensed their deep sincerity. By the way, he didn't help them because he realized that that channel just, it was blocked. It just wasn't possible. But the Baal Shem Tov sensed their deep sincerity and told them that if they have children, they will lose their wealth and become impoverished. The couple chose children in poverty, and it came to pass. That's a story that's told. Story that's told in Maimari and Marazaki. Okay, the story is told. in the Chassidic teachings, Chassidic lore, that this person, this couple was pleading to the Baal Shem Tov for a blessing for children. Baal Shem Tov sensed that he knew that he could see the spirit, he could see the tracks. The track was closed. It was blocked. It was blocked. The path for children was blocked. But they kept on begging. So he said, you know what? Okay, but if you want to open that track, then you're gonna have to sacrifice another. Will you sacrifice your wealth for that? And they said yes. And so it happened. So like he explains it, what happened in effect was that the beneficence elicited for that person through the heavenly court for wealth was altered by the Baal Shem Tov at its source for children instead. The chesed allotted him was not for two forms, and prayer could change its form, children in place of wealth. In other words, there wasn't enough, or for whatever reason, not enough, but it wasn't destined to go to two places, only one. So he ultimately made them choose. He told them they can choose which one they want.
But Rabbi, they actually got 2 of the 3 because they had each other.
Right. Well, they had the health. We don't know, but the other one is health. We don't know about the health. But vis-a-vis children and wealth, the Baal Shem Tov said essentially you're gonna have to choose. Now, initially on high, it was destined wealth and not children. But they begged. He said, "Okay, we'll smash through that one, but we're steering the train there. It's no longer going to go down the wealth track."
Is it legitimate to look at these things as sort of energies?
Yeah,
We talk about paths.
for sure.
Because, it's when you say heavenly court, it's easy to, once again, get very literal.
No, yeah. No, these are energies.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any gap. No. It's not a. It means that as the energy flows, I view it personally because I'm a Price is Right fan. As the old Plinko boy, I don't know if you remember Plinko. Anybody Price is Right fans? That was where they dropped the little round disc,
Yeah.
and it bounced along the thing. So like it hits this thing, it goes, and $1,000 or 0, and right. So there's a pathway. You even have that in like decision trees. Where like yes or no, and it branches off. So it's like the energy starts off unfiltered. It could be anything. And then the question is, okay, so 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
Let's go 2. Which 2? And then, but even after that, the question is, what does it actually look like on a daily basis? How revealed is it versus how conceptual is it? That's it. He didn't even say that yet, but that's another a checkpoint that happens. That's at top of 284. Take a look at top of 284. In addition, the daily judgment is to determine whether the person deserves that the chesed be elicited for him into this material universe, or perhaps on that specific day, his actions make him unworthy of the beneficence. In other words, will it actually translate into something tangible, or will it remain in a spiritual space? True, the chesed has been allotted him in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, but it can float to him in a spiritual form, not material, or maybe he'll get in the world to come altogether. In other words, maybe he'll get in the afterlife. So spiritual form would be, that's a good question. What does that do for us if it's spiritual form? I guess that's the point, that we don't feel it. So you're saying, but what does that mean? I guess the soul on some level relates to it. Or, I gave the example before of something that even feels negative, but it's a spiritual form of blessing that's a little bit too high for the pocket to contain.
So we don't,
It's something that we wouldn't recognize as chesed on that day. That's the bottom line. Something that we wouldn't recognize. What exactly it is, I don't know that I can, give you specifics on that, but it's something that we wouldn't recognize. So he said so far just to summarize a few different things. So Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, it's the general, like the pure chesed is allotted. But then the question is, okay, what form does that take? How many forms does that take? And which specific ones? And how tangible, how revealed will those acts of chesed actually, or those forms of chesed take on? We can now reconcile, let's conclude this chapter, this discourse actually. Sorry for scrolling around and making everyone dizzy here online. The 3 categories. We can now reconcile the 2 Talmudic statements. Man's sustenance is determined on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, yet man is judged daily. So the Talmud says 2 contradictory points. One, that the judgment happens once a year. The other one, that it happens every day. Which one is it? Is it once a year, every day? And now we know the answer is both. Once a year, we have the pure chesed. Every day, it's about translating it. For determined means that the flow of supernal chesed was determined for the person between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for the entire year. Yet, man is judged daily, meaning, so determined is general. But judge is more specific, meaning regarding the manner or the form of the chesed, how it will be translated into physical worldly terms that happens on a daily basis. Now we can understand, let's close it out with this last paragraph. Now we can understand our daily prayers and requests for healing and prosperity. In other words, the question, we asked this a long time ago, why do you have to pray every day if you did it once a year? We're done. Why are we asking for health today on Sunday, May 1st? Why are we asking for help? Didn't we pray for it on Rosh Hashanah? And weren't we blessed? Don't we believe that we were blessed on Rosh Hashanah? Yes, but how revealed do we want it today, right? Though these have been determined on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, nevertheless, this is only in the general chesed, or what I'm calling pure chesed, but it does not yet have a physical description. So every day we pray that the chesed allotted him and elicited from Malchut of Atzilut, from the highest of realms, be translated into these material concerns that we can actually appreciate. This will explain Rabbi Yeva's prayer over his meal, although it was already placed before. We had a story before about a great tzaddik, a great from the Talmudic era, that used to, when he got a meal, he would pray for a meal, for food. And it's like, it's right in front of you. So why was he praying? For it is possible that it is not his. In other words, it's possible that the food might be sitting there, but that's not his original. How does he know that the food, right, is the manifestation of the original chesed that was allotted? How does he know that the two are interconnected? So he prayed that the root of the chesed allotted to him be invested in this food. He prayed that the chesed be manifest in this food, and this food not be something disconnected from his beneficence, from his chesed. That's a beautiful thing, by the way, because how do we know that this, you see, honestly, we have no clue when we go through life. The things that we think are good, they might be terrible. The things that we think are not good, they might be good. You understand what I'm saying? There's a book, such a good book. It's called, I have it at home. It's a kid's book. It's really not a kid's book. It's such a good book. It's called, I don't remember. The concept is this guy's invited to a birthday party, but it goes back and forth between good and bad. He's invited to a birthday party, yay, but the birthday party is far away, boo. He takes a flight, yay, but the plane has engine problem and starts to crash, boo. He has a parachute, yay, but his parachute gets caught up in a tree, boo. And it just goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And you realize that that's how life is. Like, we cheer in the moment, but we have no idea how that story is going to play out. Bottom line, we've cheered for a lot of things that ended up bad for us. And we've booed a lot of things that ended up good for us. Because at the end of the day, our perception is a tiny, 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 tiny fragment in the moment of the larger picture. So I'm saying this for the last point. What was Rabbi Yeva saying? He was saying like this: I don't know the master plan. All I know is this, that I believe that God has allotted to me some chesed, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And I know that there's food in front of me. I want that this food should be blessed with the divine chesed and not be some other experience that's going to backfire against me. That's not healthy for me. I want this food to be the manifestation. I'm praying that this be indeed the manifestation of divine kindness. And this should be a realization of goodness and only blessing in my life. And we should all ask for such things. Yeah. When we take a new job, may this be the realization of divine kindness, right? We buy a new car, we buy a new house, we get a new relationship, we take on a new, whatever it is, right? May this be the culmination of divine chesed, divine kindness, and not anything else. And may it be so. So what did we learn today? In summary, we learned today about true love and pure love. True love is, like we said at the end, it's like the daily judgment. True love is a love that's cut down to the recipient. Pure love is a love that's coming from the giver's side. That's unfiltered, uncut, just absolutely pure. On Rosh Hashanah, God gives us pure love. Every day we ask that God give us true love, the love that we want, that we need. And may it be so in our lives. And let us say, Amen. It's great to see you all. Thanks for coming back to Kabbalah Coffee with me. It's great to study. I wish everybody a Shavua Tov. May this week be a week of pure love and true love. Love that we can appreciate, that we can feel, that we can integrate, that we can appreciate, that we can enjoy. May it be only for a blessing, for revealed blessings in our lives. Amen. All right, now, a quick announcement about this week. So, we are postponing, I believe, I'm going to confirm it soon, but I believe, and I mentioned it anecdotally before, but I believe we are postponing Rosh Chodesh Society this Monday night due to scheduling conflicts. So we are going to be postponing it to next Monday night, I believe. So that is the plan. Stay tuned. I'm going to be sending out an email a little bit later today with more information about that. One announcement. So that would have been tomorrow night, but again, I believe it's next Monday, the 9th of May. Next announcement is Tuesday night. This Tuesday night, we're doing our wine and cheese event with a local wine expert who's going to be taking us through a journey of multiple wines and wine tasting. It's a multi-sensory journey coupled with imported French wine and French cheese. So it's going to be really amazing. And I will be sharing some insights on the Kabbalah of wine, a tale of 3 generations, to understand a little bit of the mystical power of wine. Certainly wine has physical power. It has spiritual power as well. So all of that is going to happen Tuesday night, right here in Intown Jewish Academy at 7:30 p.m. in person, Jeff's place. Yeah. So join us for that. It's going to be amazing. Then next week, in addition to RCS, I believe, we will be starting a brand new G-dly course called Beyond Right. It's an exploration of Jewish law in the context of Jewish ethics. I mentioned before about Pirkei Avot ethics. So we'll be looking at how ethics shape Jewish law in a very powerful way. It's approved for CLE courses, fully approved, and you will love it as well. So take a look at our website, intownjewishacademy.org, for all the exciting events coming up. All right. Thanks for joining. Our online crew, David and Joy and Tony and Toba and Susan and Adam and Maritza and Mariana. Great to see you guys. Hope you had a wonderful Pesach. Hope Passover was beautiful. And it's beautiful. Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Mariana.
Thank you very much for a beautiful class.
Regards to the mishpacha. My best to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye, Dr. Nancy. See you soon.